I think that's when studying a lot of high-performing athletes, and that's why I called it the high-performance unit, is because I wanted to embody a lot of that, a lot of those principles and those lessons from other individuals that could help me coach other people to do the same thing. I was listening to a Kobe Bryant thing the other day, and he said, when I try and make the shot, that's when I do my worst. So I don't try and make the shot, I just shoot it. If it makes it, sweet. If it doesn't, no problem. And akin to that, Roger Federer said, you would think that one of the best tennis players of all time would have an extremely high statistic on points won per game. 51% of points he won per game.
It's pretty wild.
That's
nuts,
it.
Yeah.
Just above half. And he is the most elite of the elite. It's pretty much him, the Joker. And I say the Joker, but I think I'm actually fucking that up because I think it's the basketball guy.
They do call Djokovic the Joker.
Do they?
Well,
I don't actually know.
I'm pretty sure they do.
I second guessed myself a few times because I know Nikola Jokic, they call him the Joker in the NBA. And Djokovic, I'm not sure because they're both Serbian.
Yeah.
And they both don't give a fuck. Nikola Jokic is actually really funny. They're like, oh my God, you won your first championship. How does it feel? He goes, yeah, fine.
He's a fucking unit.
It's like, yeah, it's okay. But to that same point, Federer was like, I won the majority of the games that I was in, but I only won 51% of the points. And so each point is so important while you're playing it, but as soon as it's gone, it no longer exists.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's really cool as a concept. It's just, I know everybody gets into the woo-woo, airy-fairy, Bondi yoga fucking idiots, but there's like, oh, be in the present moment. Like, no, it legitimately does have foundations within high-level performers, whether it's in business or athletics or any field you can think of. And your ability to remain present amidst stress, amidst fear, amidst anxiety or any of these things is so important for performance. And I think that's something that I do particularly well. Everybody had commentary for the fact that, well, not everybody, half the people on Instagram were really happy that I lost to God, and half the people on Instagram were like, wow, you looked really calm and composed and really relaxed. And I was like, yeah, that's because I was. And that's something you have to foster. That's something you have to build. That's a skill that you can work on, just like an armbar, just like a half guard pass. And I think that's what sort of sets me apart against the majority of my peers in competitive jiu-jitsu. Is that I've just focused on that so much more than the majority of other people. And it was cool to be around some of the biggest names in the sport also because I'm not in their heads, but Tynan Dalpra and Diego Pato from AOJ were in my corner warming up. And they looked to be doing similar things that I was doing.
Yep.
And they looked to be in a similar frame of mind where you're calm and collected. You're not in a state of complete relaxation where you would feel like you were having a nap, although they were at the beginning of the warm-up. But this is like 2-3 hours outside of a match. So very common to see that happening. And they definitely weren't pacing around frantically in some sort of anxious state. So you're in this like relaxed receptivity for everything that's going on. And when you speak to athletes of all varieties, all different sports, at all different levels, when they're successful, whether they're amateur or pro or anything like that, it is that calm receptiveness to all the stimulus that is going on. And they're not stressed, they're not brittle, they're not, it's the whole be like water Bruce Lee sort of analogy.
Very accepting of the situation around them. Yeah,
it's responsive rather than reactionary. And this was something I struggled to do in league because I was always focused upon the stats at the end of the game, because if I had good stats, it would make me feel good. If I had bad stats, it would make me feel bad. And in some ways, I paralyzed myself on the field, which led to shit performances because I tried to just focus on the numbers. And if you had a game where you had 8 runs for 80 meters, like run per meter, 10 meters is actually pretty good. But if they were all sloppy and your play the ball speed was much slower and you didn't really make an impact, it didn't matter. Whereas if you had 5 runs or 15 runs for 50 meters, but they were all impactful, they set up the next play, you were part of the team, all that sort of stuff. The moral of the story is that the numbers lie. And so I was basing my performance off a lie, off an interpretation of a number that didn't fucking matter.
Once again, someone else's measure of whether your performance is
exactly.
good enough.
And it was my own in the future, which was the worst part about it because I couldn't escape it.
Because you adopted what you thought was...
I couldn't ignore it.
You know.
That was the primary issue is I couldn't ignore it because it was always waiting for me afterwards because it wasn't based on somebody else's opinion. It was based on my opinion. And I'd literally end up finishing a game and fucking go and refresh the page to see if it would come up or not. I was fucked. It was such a shit way to play. And it completely takes you outside of that present moment. Conversely, some of the best players that I ever played with, like Angus Crichton or Cam Murray or any of those guys, couldn't give less of a fuck about what the app said. They were there and in the moment of the time of the game. And that's why they had more success because they were more fluid and more pliable in their reactivity to what was actually happening right there and then, which means they could make better decisions faster and they could be there. There's these players in the game where they're just around the ball whenever something good's happening. They're just always there. That was those guys.
Yeah.
And I think your ability to take yourself out of the moment, I think your ability to recognize that you made a mistake and then that's now the past and it doesn't exist anymore, gone, chop that off, delete it from your head. I think the people that get really frustrated and really angry at themselves that they make a mistake, that costs energy, whether you like it or not. And so now you're stuck within that paradigm of having to make up for it or having to overcompensate for the fact that you made a mistake. It's all very dangerous while you have to be fully presently aware in the game at the time. And to go back to Kobe's thing, his mindset coach, I'm reading his book at the moment, his mindset coach was like, don't try and score, just try and shoot. And he was like, wow, that's really profound. He goes, what happened when you stopped doing that? He goes, I went from 30 a game to 50.
Yeah.
Just like that. Just like that. And I'm like, wow, that's actually really impressive. But the larger point out of that is just take away the expectation. Take away the, it must be this way.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to be stringent and you're going to be brittle and brittle things snap. That when the hurricane comes around, the old brittle tree gets taken with it. But the fresh grass, the pliable grass that moves within the wind has an ability to stay untouched.
Head over to Jordan Checker Podcast to get the full exclusive experience.